Welcome to the Craft of Coaching podcast, where we dive into what it truly takes to become a skilled, confident life coach. I'm your host, Kate, head of the CLCC, or Certified Life Coach Collective, an ICF-Accredited Level 1 coach training program. We combine courage, coaching, and community to offer you more than just a training program, but a life-changing experience where you use your own personal transformation as the learning ground for supporting your clients. On this podcast, we explore how you can use coaching skills to support your clients or expand your own growth, all grounded in evidence-based coaching practices. Learn more about our program and get free resources for becoming a life coach at teamclcc.com. And now, here's today's episode. Hey everybody. Today's episode is about coaching and intersectionality. And I have touched on some of my own process with intersectionality in an earlier Craft of Coaching episode in which I talked about evolving your business. Because those of you who have been longtime listeners might remember that at one time, the URL that we used for the Courageous Living Coach certification, of which I am the director, was tribeclcc.com instead of teamclcc.com. And I think I've caught every podcast episode where I have the old URL and changed it, all that, but forgive me if I've missed something. And in that episode on evolving your coaching business, I did a whole podcast episode about the background behind why I made that change. And you can listen into that. But the reason I made it a public one is because I think that one of the biggest issues that comes up for people around doing intersectional work is a fear of getting it wrong, and thus this has people take their work into hiding, when in fact I think actually the process that we are all going through as we learn needs to be one that is open. And it's my hope that in sharing the process I went through with that episode, that the listeners of that episode are going, oh, okay, got it. Here's where Kate messed up. Here's where Kate needed to do it differently, needed to evolve. Here's what that looked like for her. And I can do that too. I can look at the places in my business where maybe I am not bringing intersectionality to my work. And there's an opportunity here for me to start doing that. And instead of it being this like shame-based thing, I got to hide it. I got to make sure nobody knows that I made that mistake. And be like, oh yeah, that's what I did. And this is how I'm growing. And then hopefully someone else can see what you go through and then go, okay, I can learn from this person as well. So first I'll say a couple of different things. Big deep breath. One is that I am so aware that the last thing the world needs is another white person with privilege trying to tell everyone else how to be intersectional. So I want to come right out the gate and say that I personally believe that this work really needs to be done first with the people who have been doing this work before it was a hot topic for several years now. And second, particularly, I think it needs to be done with the people who have been most marginalized by oppressive systems. Think marginalized, if you're not familiar with this, as in pushed out to the margins. And I think that even if you are not going to somehow turn around your entire business model to, I'm now going to be like Miss Intersectionality, Miss Woke, Miss, I'm, all the things, or Mr., or they, them, however you fall. I include everyone in this need for change. However you're going to be doing it, that is something I would ask you to think about. I would ask you to think about, even if intersectionality becomes part of your personal evolution, who really I want to be directing money, resources, attention, etc. to are the people who have made this their life's work already. And it's not just about what's in the moment. And if you feel called to do intersectional work, there are a lot of ways to put it into your business. And I'm going to talk about a couple of those ways here. So I'm going to actually talk about it through the CLCC lens. And then I'm going to talk about 3 specific things that I think we can do to really look at our businesses. First I'm going to talk about what it can look like through CLCC, because I want to give you an example of that'll give you some ideas. And then I've got 3 questions that I'm going to be posing to you. So first thing with CLCC, we could be doing better. The team is all about velocity. We don't wait. It's like once we get clear on what needs to be different and what needs to be done, it's like we're doing. And I love that about us. And so there are a couple different things that we have always built into CLCC. For one thing, back when CLCC first started in 2014, and this might surprise some people, but when CLCC, when the website first came up and everything like that, I was very intentional and adamant about finding stock photography that represented different people, different ages, different groups, different races, all of that. And in 2014, it was actually quite hard to find. That's the thing that might surprise people. Thankfully, that has changed a lot. And it is due to, and I honor, the work of the activists who have said, we're not being represented. This is ridiculous. But it was actually hard to find interracial and diverse stock photography when we first began. So that is one thing that we have threaded in from the very beginning. Another thing that we do, and we started during our retreat weekend, we've got this exercise that we take everyone through. We call it the funnel. And at the bottom of this funnel, we put the client's presenting issue, and then we go through an exercise with our trainees asking about all the different things that a client might be bringing to a session when they want to focus on whatever that issue at the bottom of the funnel is. And of course, the responses at first are always things like, maybe they didn't get a lot of sleep, maybe they've been kind of stressed out lately, maybe they don't feel a lot of support at home. And then we start asking the trainees to branch out a little bit. Well, what else? So if this client is a woman, how might sexism be influencing the fact that she is struggling with that problem? If this client is transgender, if this client is LGBTQIA, if this client is a person of color, if this client does not have access to resources, if this client is struggling with chronic illness, or if they are differently abled, what are some of those things that would then influence the fact that this issue is happening? So we're trying to bring attention to the holistic picture of who a client is. So when you have read anything from CLCC, we're talking about a holistic training, that's part of what we're talking about. We're talking about something that is bigger than just that presenting issue. We're going, what are all the things that are coming into that client and that client's life and what they are struggling with in that moment, that are not just about how that day or that week went, not just about whatever skills their caregivers gave them when they were growing up, but that are actually tied to larger systems, that are actually tied to privilege, that are actually tied to oppression. Another thing that Team CLCC has been pretty righteous about is really just being open and vocal about the fact that it isn't okay to live in a world where people are oppressed. And we've been putting a little note at the end of our catalog every year that says, our team believes. And it says things like, our team believes in the power of coaching, that courage is where it's at, that marginalized voices need to be heard now. We believe in what you're capable of. We believe that expanding who you are gives you the capacity to empower others. We believe in pragmatic research-backed behavior change. We also believe in totally unstructured woo, because there is some level on which the intuitive, psychic, universal, energetic realms are felt, I think, by all of us if we're paying attention. So we added this page because we wanted to come out the gate saying we really believe in something that is about inclusion for all. And we aren't going to be shy about saying that we see the power structures that are happening. And we aren't going to be shy about saying that we want different things to change. Another thing that we have integrated into CLCC is an internal program, actually. It's called Helping the Helpers. So the thought with this was we've got life coaches, right? I know a lot of life coaches. I mean, me personally, I know a lot of life coaches. So I know a lot of life coaches. And then we've got these organizations who are out there helping people. And so often the support staff at these organizations, and this includes nonprofits, this could include education, like teachers, they don't have the support they need. They don't have anyone helping them. They're giving and giving and giving and giving in the nonprofit sector. And then they just have to figure out how to fill their well themselves. How can we bridge that gap? If I know a bunch of coaches, and if some of them are willing to donate some of their time or they're accruing hours for the ICF, if I can connect them with organizations that are doing great work, it's a win-win. So it's not anything that I'm or the program is making any money off of. And one of the first organizations we started working with is this organization that I love and that I actually have a role with. It's called Safe Place International, and they help LGBTQ plus refugees who have been displaced due to war, due to poverty, due to corrupt government. LGBTQ plus people are often not accepted at refugee camps because of their sexuality. Imagine being in the middle of a war and you have no home and you've been completely displaced and you can't get into a refugee camp, which a refugee camp is nowhere that I think any of us are going, ooh, luxury. You can't even get in there because of your sexual orientation or even a perception of your sexual orientation. Safe Place International helps those refugees find safe housing. And so it is like the honor of a lifetime to know that their support staff have a lot of things that they see, a lot of vicarious stress just because of the work that they do, to be able to provide them with coaching. That's one of the things that we want to do to be giving back. And we started doing this a couple years ago. Another thing that is part of CLCC is we have integrated the brilliant book, The Body is Not an Apology by Sonia Renee Taylor into our program. And then I'll share that for me personally, every single person who joins the CLCC leadership team or who onboards as a member of my more admin support staff is given a copy of the book, So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Oluo, Oluo, which has hit the bestseller lists in recent weeks and which I highly recommend. So I give all of those examples to give you a framework for how you that might then go, how can I bring more intersectionality to my business? How can I include photography and images on my website, all of my social media assets, etc., that show something other than just wealthy people, just abled people, just white people, whatever that might be? How can I craft a mission statement that is not just about personal empowerment, but it's about personal empowerment in the context of worldwide empowerment? Because I don't know about you, but I don't think that I can really be living my best life when somebody is effectively suffocated to death with a knee on their neck by a police officer who is supposed to protect them. I don't think I can really say that I'm living my best life or creating the best world for my child when Breonna Taylor is sleeping in her home and cops come in and shoot her to death. Oops, wrong apartment. No. So we have to get beyond this idea that it is only the personal, because there is this wider world that we live in. And you don't have all the answers for how to fix these problems. I don't have all the answers for how to fix these problems. That's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is about saying we all are part of a larger, like a constellation of different answers that need to come together. So what are the ways that you can do this? How can you start to do your own anti-oppression work? How can you, when probably most coaches refer books to clients. Are the only books you refer by men? Are the only books you refer by white women? These are things that are worth looking at. So now I'm going to get into the 3 particular questions that I wanted to pose to all of you. One is a question that we were offered through CLCC from one of our graduates, Justice Wadner Smith. Now, Justice is a lovely human being, and she became a coach and love it. She has a background in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I asked if she would come and do some DEI training and how that intersects with coaching for our CLCC trainees, current and past. We frequently offer continuing education bonus calls that are totally free for our past graduates to continue to educate themselves. So Justice came, and one of the first questions that she asked everybody on the call that she was facilitating to consider was, what are your intersections? So there's this idea with intersectionality, which comes from Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, that you can have multiple intersections, and that will mean that there are some places where you have a lot of power and other places where you don't. I am white. My white skin is one place where I might have power, but that intersects with the fact that as a woman, a cisgender woman, but a woman, I might not have as much power. I'm not going to feel safe walking alone in the dark down the street at night, especially if I see a male around. So there are these intersections that we all have, and some of them have to do with our abilities, our physical abilities, and our physical health. Chronic fatigue, chronic health issues can be one area where somebody has less power or privilege, especially if that's also coupled with an issue like lack of access to healthcare or adequate healthcare. People who have different skin colors is the more obvious example that people often think of. But when was the last time you talked with any of your clients, for instance, about how their gender might be affecting their experience of the world? I'm thinking about things like how many incredibly intelligent, high-performing women have I ever worked with who get to some level of leadership and management at a company they're in, and then their ideas are not well received. Now, if the conversation when a client brings that to you is only ever about, here's how you can make them listen, you just need some better communication tools. If that's the limit of the conversation, then we are neglecting something, which is that historically, women in leadership positions are being impacted by sexism. They are automatically being disregarded as having ideas that are of less value, that are not to be listened to. They might have their work stolen by men. And that's just a reality. That's just a fact. And in working with a client, how do you help them to see that that's a piece of it too? So that's why you look at your own intersections. Where are the places in your life where you were part of a target group, where you were bullied, where you were made fun of for something about who you are that you couldn't help? Where are the places where you felt unsafe? Where are the places where you did not have access to resources? Now, there is a very strong thread in the coaching community in particular that wants to talk about not being a victim. And I want to talk about that too. Because the thing, and also there's this other piece in there too, which is don't focus on the past. It's only about the future and moving forward. What happened to you in the past is what happened to you in the past. You like my kind of like tisk-tisky voice? That's what that is. So, okay, I don't want anybody to be a victim either. I don't want anyone to be focused on the past either. But 2 things. 1, when someone is being a victim, that is when they are stuck in a space of nothing to be done, including nothing to be learned. When someone is taking responsibility for their experience, they acknowledge the pain of a past hurt, and it is real that they felt that pain, and they are engaging with that pain to transcend it. I have met victims in my life. I have been a victim in my life. It is a very different energy to be in victim mode of like, womp, womp, well, nothing you can do because and it's always somebody else's fault, and That is a very different energy than, this was not right that this happened to me. It was painful. It hurt. It affected my life and impacted my life in these ways. It does not matter that that person did not intend to. That is the reality of what I experienced. And here's what I want to do with that. I want to feel the pain. I want to process the pain. I want to learn from the pain. I want to transcend the pain. So the two are very different. And I do not think that a client who wants to, and often clients don't want to, because man, there's some indoctrination in our society about not letting those negative feelings get you down. Don't wallow. Those tisk-tisky things. Clients who are willing to do the work of seeing that part of transcending their pain will be feeling their pain are doing some of the most courageous work out there. Clients who are not going to stuff that pain down, clients who are going to bring it up to the air and say, I will cry it out, I will scream it out, I will whatever they want to do with it, whatever they feel most empowered around, but I will not deny my experience. I will not pretend I didn't experience what I did. They are doing some of the most courageous work around. And then regarding the idea that if you go into that work with the client, well, you're focusing on the past and you need to focus on the future and moving forward. Well, hold on a minute. In what universe is your past not affecting you in the here and now? I mean, in CLCC, we talk about, there's often this idea with coaching that therapy is about the past, coaching is about the future. CLCC, what we say is it's about the present. And sometimes what happened to you in the past is showing up in the here and now of your life. And that's real too. And I think if we're really honest, that's always happening. I mean, your conditioning from the past is part of what is having you filter everything I'm saying right now in a certain way. The past is always with us. So being willing to acknowledge and feel the pain from the past as part of processing through it is a very presence-based activity. It is not about being a victim to the past. And in fact, being willing to process through your experience of pain from the past, those experiences of oppression, of discrimination, of being othered, of being marginalized in the here and now present are a beautiful way to build a future where those things don't hang around feeling like a burden that you carry and can't get away from. So with your clients, I would ask, let me back up just a little bit. First, I'm going to ask you, the coach listening to this, are you aware of what your intersections are? Are you willing to do the vulnerable work of seeing how, under the right circumstances, you could be just like anyone else who is getting marginalized? You might have a lot of power and privilege, but there is absolutely a place where you could hit the skids and really be struggling. So are you willing to be vulnerable enough to look at what your intersections are, the places where the oppressive systems that exist right now would chew you up and spit you out and not think twice because you don't conform to their model of what it's supposed to look like or how it's supposed to be? And then, are you willing to be a stand for your clients to be very real about empowering themselves by authentically getting real about who they've been, the shoes they've walked in, all the things they've experienced, and how that affects their here and now? And that really leads me to the second question I was going to ask, which is, where do you create space to coach the person, not the problem? And that's related to the funnel exercise I described at the beginning of this episode. And it's related to what I've just been talking about. If you focus only on the problem of how do I get, how do I excel at work, get my ideas to be heard at work, etc., then it's a top level concern. But if you look at the person and you look at, say, if this client of yours is a woman, all the places where she has received conditioning not to speak up, where maybe she hasn't listened to it. Maybe that's part of how she's gotten where she is, but the conditioning is still there. I don't listen to a lot of the diet talk that's out there, but I'm very aware of what it is. I don't listen to a lot. I'm speaking personally. I don't let it dictate my next move, but I'm aware of what it is because I've been conditioned into it. So where is the conversation happening to be really real, to integrate some coaching around not just the problem, the top level problem the person is facing, but the whole person, the totality of who this client is? And I can't think of a single issue someone would bring to coaching that would have nothing to do with an intersection. If a client is coming to you saying they are questioning being in their marriage, there's something to look at there around financial security. Because in this system we live in of Western capitalism, that's what most of my listeners I know are listening in. It's like if you suddenly have half your income drop, you don't have a social safety net under you. You don't have health insurance, maybe. You might not have housing. That is a social issue that somebody might not be able to choose to leave a marriage where they are unhappy because of money. That's bananas. That is oppression. Or if you have a client who is a person of color and they are bringing an issue to you around health, look at some of the research as a coach. Do you know how many times people of color are denied access to medical care because they are told that symptoms that they are experiencing are in their heads that aren't real, that they aren't real? It will break your heart on some level to read the truth of what many people go through on a day-to-day basis and the ways that they fight just to survive. But please don't leave your clients alone in that experience. Isn't that part of why you want to coach someone? So that somebody in the world doesn't have to walk through something hard alone? So there's more to co-creating a relationship. There's more to not letting someone walk through life alone than just, oh, hey, I happen to be on the other end of the line with you. There's more to it than that. Now, here's the third question I'll bring in, and what I just was talking about leads into that a little bit. What are you doing for self-education? Because I certainly also would not want you to get on a call with a client who is differently abled or a different sexual orientation or a different skin color or a different income bracket or whatever the intersection happens to be. I would not want you to then go, I'm going to be a great coach, and next time I'm on the phone with my Latina client, I'm going to be like, so tell me, what is the Latina experience? No. You don't turn to your clients and ask your clients to educate you about the work that the oppression that they experience on a daily basis. You educate yourself. And this is very similar to, hey, if you're a career coach and you know that your clients are trying to find jobs and that, just the kind of old school submit your resume and hope for the best isn't working, you as a coach have to find out, like, okay, what are people doing on LinkedIn these days? It's really got to be a commitment to overall education. Now, there are a few books that I'd like to recommend for that, and a couple people that I'd like to recommend. I'll start with the people, because there's some really great people that you can learn from. One is Desiree Adaway. She's at the Adaway Group, ADAWAYGROUP.com. Another one is Andrea Renee Johnson. I actually interviewed her for the Courageous Living program, which is a digital program, personal growth program that I offer at yourcourageouslife.com or courageouslivingprogram.com. You can find it there. And she's brilliant. And she actually has a number of offerings on coaching and intersectionality. Another one is Mama J, MAMAJLOVE.com, mamajlove.com. So those are just a few coaches. And there are a lot of coaches out there who can offer this work. Those are just a few. Books. I've mentioned Sonia Renee Taylor's The Body is Not an Apology. I will also bring up again Ijeoma Oluo, So You Want to Talk About Race. I just recently was made of a book called Diversity Beyond Lip Service, and I thought it was brilliant. It's by Lawana Harris, Lawanna Harris, and you can find it on Amazon. I have recently fallen in love with Pleasure Activism and Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown. Oh my God, those two books, brilliant. And one of the things that I love about her work too is how she frequently says in footnotes in her work, if you'd like to learn more about this piece, you could go here. And if you'd like to learn more about this piece, you could go here. And so Emergent Strategy and Pleasure Activism, both really awake, alive books. So the question is, how are you educating yourself? You are not going to have all the answers. I do not have all the answers. I fully recognize that there is probably some place in my life right now where I am unintentionally participating in oppression in some way. And at some point, I'm going to fall on my butt and see that and feel shame, feel embarrassment, feel frustrated with myself. How could I have not seen all the things? Okay. And if there isn't some place in my life where I'm doing that right now, I fully accept that there will be some place where I do that in the future, because this is the soup that we are all swimming in. We're swimming in this all the time. We're swimming in this all the time. The messages about who we are supposed to be, according to some idealized external standard that props up really power structures that are about whiteness, power structures that are about thinness, power structures that are about money, all of that. We are swimming in that all the time. I'm seeing the conditioning of it on some level and doing my best to try to dismantle some of it, because it just occurred to me the other day. I have a number of LGBTQ plus family members, friends, and it occurred to me, I have a 6-year-old, and I was like, where are the movies with same-sex relationships? You know, like it's like any Disney princess movie. It's just constantly some kind of love story, with the exception of Moana, which is actually my favorite Disney princess movie, if you must know. But just thinking about books, how books are presented, how movies are presented, how shows are presented, and how already my daughter is getting conditioned into some level of a heteronormative ideal, air quotes around the word ideal. So this is work that we will always need to unpack, because we've all been swimming in it since we were born. So are you doing the work to unpack it? And it will be ongoing work. You are not going to get a gold star. I don't get a gold star. Nobody gets a gold star for this. But I do believe that what we get is knowing that we are about something more than just our own individual lives, which is important. And B, I think that's how we come fully into integrity with ourselves. because I just really don't see how I can say that I'm a fully empowered person. I know I said this already, but I just don't see how I can say that my life, I'm living my best life, and that I've reached a sense of full sovereignty and full empowerment and really have experienced the fullness of life if I am turning an eye away from the very real suffering that people go through. That is systemic, that happens over and over and over and over and over and over again, purely because of things that are just absolutely ridiculous and arbitrary, like discrimination because of skin color, discrimination because of how much money somebody has, discrimination because of their sexual orientation. Let's be part of shifting our lives for something better. Let's stop settling. That's maybe another way to put it, that it could be really resonant with the coaching industry. You know, how many times do we ask our clients to stop settling? How many times have we ever challenged our clients around a belief system? Well, it's just the way it is. And you're sitting there as a client, you're like, oh, or as a coach with your client, and you're like, I know that this client is playing small, that there's something bigger that they're not seeing. Well, come on, guys. Come on, everybody. Actually, let me go back. See, I just did it right there with this come on, guys, as an expression, which is a gendered expression. So how about, come on, y'all. Now that I live in Texas, I can say y'all. Let's not settle. Let's not tell ourselves this is how it is and this is how it has to be. Let's not tell ourselves this old story of limitation, that it is what it is and it's not going to get any better. Forget that. No. Because we can do better. And we can do better together. So I hope that this has given you just a few ideas for how you can powerfully bring intersectionality into not just your life, but into your coaching and in your work with clients.
All right, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, would you help us out and take a moment to give us a rating in iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening? It really helps us get the word out to other listeners. And before you go today, would you like free resources to support your coaching journey? Whether you're considering becoming a coach or you want advanced coach skills training, access our coaching resource library at teamclcc.com. Again, that's teamclcc.com. Can't wait to connect with you. And again, thanks for listening.